Hello, I'm Alexey and this is going to be a introductory podcast about myself. And even though it might not be as interesting as some other people, but I still think that I can tell a pretty interesting story about my experience and just sort of my life story. So, well, talking about my life, I think it is reasonable to start off with where I'm from, and that is the city of St. Petersburg in Russia. Pretty northern, close to Finland, and really, I think it's very beautiful as any European city, and it really is a European city. Not all Russian cities are like that, and if you know geography, you obviously understand that part of Russia is in Asia, part is in Europe, and so St. Petersburg is a European city. I grew up not in the very center, but also not too far from it, and mm, really grew up. When I say grow up, it's actually only the first 4 years of my life. Um, and after those 4 years, obviously, I barely remember anything from that period of time. But after that, my family decided to move to the US um, for work opportunities and for other reasons. I might not know all of them. Um, but my family decided to move to America, and so my conscious life, if you can call it that, starts really in kindergarten in a town called Fort Lee. Um, so, uh, really, I was just a regular boy. I went to the kindergarten. I loved soccer, and um, after that, I kind of started integrating into society, and from that moment, I really remember much more than um, before that. And so there, I met my first friends, um, which are still in my life, and one of my best friends is that's where I met him at a playground near the school. And really, there's not too much to talk about that period of time, except maybe for the fact that there was this one boy who was really very annoying and bullying other kids, and that really kind of felt personal to me. I wasn't necessarily bullied, but I just felt bad for the other kids. And me and my friend, Nick, um, we grouped up with a few other boys, and we started going after school to the playground where he used to bully kids and kind of stand up to him. Well, there was a few of us. He was older, maybe 2 years older, but not that much older to, you know, be able to oppose five kids. So uh, that's maybe a story about how really you can make a difference, even at any age, right? If you just have the motivation, if you really want to do it, you can always make a difference and help other people. And so um, I just studied there, got into trouble a lot, really. Maybe also a funny story about that is that um, if you know me in person, it wouldn't be that obvious, but I used to be very kind of provocative. I used to talk very loudly at lunchroom, and that was prohibited. So I would get detentions, which would look so that on recess we would go outside and everybody was playing around on the playground and on the field, and I had to sit near a rock near the fence. And that's also a kind of a funny story that you can change. And really, right now, I can't imagine myself breaking all the rules and kind of going against the grid. And just people change, and some will say I changed in a bad way. I lost my rebellious kind of part of personality. Some will say it's a good thing. I become more responsible, but in any kind of way, I think that it's important to understand that people change, and in a bad way or a good way, always change. So after that, in a few years, in the middle of third grade, again, a funny story, how it happened, but my dad told me that we have to move to Russia. It happened on a parking lot outside Whole Foods. So we were shopping in Whole Foods, and then we got to the car, right? And I'm just sitting there waiting for my dad to start the car, and I'm wondering why is he not starting it, and then he hits me with this giant kind of baggage of information that we're moving to Russia in 2 weeks, and I'm just shocked there sitting. I can't believe what's happening, right? I know all my friends are going to be here. I'm moving to another country. Even though I know the language, I barely know any grammar rules. I thought about that as well, that it's going to be hard for me to adapt in school, and I burst out crying, but soon enough I understood that there's nothing I can really do, so just kind of accepted it, said a goodbye to all my friends, and we moved back to Russia. And there were some positive things about that too for me, because I had older relatives there, I had my cousin there. We came to Russia on summers. Almost every summer we flew to Russia, so I knew a lot of people there. And so after we moved to Russia, I obviously couldn't go to a regular school because I was very behind in terms of the language. Maybe in terms of science or math, I was on their level, but in terms of grammar rules, vocabulary, and all that stuff, I was behind. So when we moved to Russia, I went to a private elementary school, a very good one, and I could participate in theater, in music classes, art classes, and obviously we had math and other sciences too. But I thought that those sciences and the material in those sciences could have been a little bit harder. I didn't feel challenged there. And so after 2 years at that school, which were very pleasant 2 years, I moved to another private school where, even though the same tendency persisted, more artistic people would probably love it, but for me, as a person who loves math and maybe physics, it wasn't perfect. But the difference was that this school allowed me much more free time to actually go do something aside from school. And what I chose was actually the math club that my friend was going to. And I kind of got a recommendation for that, and so I applied, and I got accepted after a entrance exam. So I went there. My friend already graduated. It wasn't even that much of my friend, it was more of a family friend. But I came into this club without knowing anyone there, without knowing the teacher, without knowing about 20 people who were with in that year with me. And so this was another kind of opportunity, but also it was again pretty scary, right? Because this was my a year after I came to Russia, and I got thrown into this place where a lot of different people kind of study together, and it was, I was uncomfortable at the start, but then soon enough I met people, and I met my friend, which is still one of my best friends today, in a pretty interesting way. The way that the math club was organized is that you solve problems and then you come up to the teacher and explain your solution to him. And then he either says that you're wrong and then you have to resolve it, or he gives you points for that. And at the very end of the class, I thought that I solved a problem, and I asked a person who was sitting next to me if this was the correct solution. And the person next to me, right? And I knew that he solved this problem. He said, "No, this can't be right. You got the wrong answer." And I believed him. And then the teacher went over the problems after that. And I was like, "Oh my God, I was right." And that's kind of how we met and we started talking. And yep, he's still my friend today. So again, making friends is really not only about coming up to a person and saying, "Hello, this is my name. This is my name. Let's exchange contacts." It could happen pretty randomly. So yes, this math club really is what dragged me through next 6 years of living in Russia, right? So um, it was a kind of roller coaster of um, studying in private schools, studying in this club, and then in eighth grade, of course, it's not 6 years; it was much more. But for 4 years since then, I was studying in this math club, and after 4 years, I was really ahead of my grade in terms of math. Well, that is what math clubs are made for, but I was really ahead, and so the purpose of that was to get enrolled in a elite school, right? One of the best schools in the city, or actually the best school in the city, in terms of math and physics, and it has a very big competition. The acceptance rate is 5 to 10%. They don't publish the information, but that's the approximates. So, really, I studied very hard in the math club, but then when the time came, right, I had about a year to study before eighth grade, when I had to pass the entrance exam. And what I did in that year was really just persistence. I wasn't necessarily talented in math or in physics, but what I did for that 1 year is just woke up every morning on holidays or Saturdays, Sundays, any day that I had no school. I woke up in the morning, took a shower, went on to solve a full exam. That's about 2 hours. So every free day. And that's kind of what got me into the school really at the end. It's just this persistence. It's not talent. It's really just solving and solving and solving. And then about a month before the actual exam, I stopped going to school and I just sat there and studied every single day. And when you think about it, right, this is a lot of work, and that is the work you have to put in to achieve something. And again, you can start making up excuses that I'm not talented, I'm not made for this, I'm just there better, they had more money to study. This was all kind of just information lying out on the internet. These like probationary tests that they published, just math problems that were similar to what they offered, and this was just work. This was just work, and a lot of people who tried to get in those schools had tutors, had bought some materials to study. But really, what it comes down to is how much do you really want to get into a school, a college, whatever you want. It just comes to the amount of work you're ready to put in. And I was ready to put in a lot of work, and really thanks to my dad, I think he really pushed me to it. He was waking up every morning to make sure that I really went and did what I was going to. And then later, this just came into my routine, and he could kind of sleep in. But it was really him who pushed me to do this. And so I think that you can also, if you need some assistance, you can almost always ask your parents or friends or whoever to just help you with kind of getting something you really want to do into your routine. If you want to study for the SAT, for example, and you want to study half an hour every day, ask someone to come to you at a certain time and tell you, this is the time you need to go and study. And after some time, you can do this yourself. But for the first month, maybe, or a week, it depends, it varies from person to person. But if you need someone to push you to your goal, really don't hesitate to ask. I think anybody will be glad to help you. So, after the month of intense studying and practicing for the entrance exams, they finally arrived, and I got into all three schools that I wanted to, and ended up going into school number 30, which is the second in St. Petersburg in terms of math and physics. And the reason was, I think, mostly because of the legacy that my family has there. My dad and my grandpa went there, and it was just something I wanted to do, kind of follow them, even though it was a different school, different teachers. But I still wanted to kind of continue my family's legacy there. And so I enrolled in it, and it was a much harder school, right? And I had to adapt to the amount of work that I had to do. And something that I can say helped me was, don't hesitate to ask your new classmates, your family, to help you at the start. Don't hesitate to ask your teachers to kind of assist you when you're first coming to school, because it really helps you get through the coursework and also helps you start being more engaged with people around you at school, and that always helps. And so I spent 2 years there. It was an amazing school. I obviously finally got the challenge I wanted from school. It was a very hard school. And then after 2 years, in the end of ninth grade, the war started. And that part, I think, was a kind of intermediate part between uh, my life in Russia and my life in the US. I stayed for quite some time in Armenia, a great country. I recommend visiting if you ever have the chance. And then nothing really to talk about in that time period. And then I moved to the US. And maybe if you followed through, you counted them, and this is my fifth school. So this is the fifth time I had to adapt to coming into a new culture, even maybe. But definitely to a new language, new people, new teachers, new system. And really, this was my fifth time. And I have to say that it was much easier for me than the previous ones. So I think that there is experience playing role in how you perceive information about meeting new people or adapting to new environment. So to any person who is worrying about the fact that they, for example, moved schools and they have to go to a new school and go all over the process of this meeting new people and adapting, and it was so stressful and took so much energy. I think that the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So my second time was easier than my first time. My third time was easier than the second. And my fifth time, I almost didn't have to adapt really, even though the system changed a lot. And so this is where I am now in the Interact Club, talking about my story in this podcast. And really, maybe there's not a lot of information contained in this recording, but I think an important idea I wanted to convey is that no matter how much action happens in your life, good, bad, right? Maybe worrying, maybe stressful, you can always find some good things in it, and you can always make a difference. From the first time that I went against bullying in elementary school in Fort Lee, all the way into high school here in Tenafly, I always tried to help people around me. When there was a disabled kid in the private school that I went the first time, people were making fun of him, right? And I tried to help him too. And really, for me, at every step of my life, helping people was something that I held on to as kind of my way of feeling stability. And I think that it's a great thing to do. I think that every person can help people around them without enrolling in clubs or donating money. Just be nice to people around you. Just help people who are being bullied, and really, that would contribute to society greatly. If every person would do that, I think the world would be a better place. So this is kind of it, I guess. Thank you for those who are gonna listen to this and get to this place, and have a great day.
This will be the second to last episode of the season. Our last episode will introduce our fourth and final host. Stay tuned for a second season, where we will have video footage along with behind the scenes on our YouTube channel called the Interact Club. On our podcast in general, we will have guests and speakers talk about their experiences with mental health. Again, thank you so much for listening to this season of the podcast. We hope you have a great day.